This past Sunday, President Donald Trump announced that he was more popular than Abraham Lincoln. In the tweet containing the boast, Trump sarcastically suggests that someone should recheck the poll to make sure it's right. Trump does not specify which poll he's talking about. This is at least the third time in the last month that Trump has claimed to be the most popular Republican president ever, and the second time he has specifically insisted he is more popular than Lincoln. He's never cited a particular source for his claim, but the best guess seems to be that Trump is referring to a Gallup poll released in June, which had him at a 90% approval rating among Republicans. If that is the poll that Trump is referring to, and there's really no other poll that it could be as far as I can tell, then his claim to be more popular than Lincoln is false for two important reasons. First, a 90% approval rating among Republicans is certainly a high number, but it's not the highest ever. Following the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, Gallup reported an approval rating among Republicans for George W. Bush of 90% or higher in every poll for well over a year. George W. Bush also scored a 90% approval or higher among Republicans 7 times before 9/11. Trump's popularity within his own party is high, but not unprecedented even in recent history. Second, the Gallup poll measuring public opinion of presidential job performance began during the Truman administration. Such polling didn't exist during Abraham Lincoln's lifetime. Trump's insistence that he is more popular among Republicans than Lincoln is based on nothing more than his own delusional ego. But that doesn't mean we should just laugh it off. To the contrary, Trump's claims of his popularity are nearly always unverifiable, misleading, or outright false, and yet he makes such claims constantly. And though he is more preoccupied with opinion polls and television ratings than any American president has ever been, he doesn't limit himself to those measures of popularity. He also lies about and distorts the results of the 2016 presidential election. Slate maintains a webpage dedicated to tracking how long it's been since the last time Trump bragged about his election victory. As of this recording, it's been 12 days. The longest he's gone without bragging about winning the 2016 election since taking office is 30 days. When Trump brags about winning the election, he tends to inflate his margin of victory and exaggerate its historical significance. He's repeatedly claimed that he won in a landslide, despite losing the popular vote by almost 3 million votes, and the margin of his electoral college victory being among the smallest ever. In an interview with CBS News conducted 2 weeks ago, Trump again insisted that he won the 2016 election, quote, rather easily. But his electoral college victory came down to narrow wins in 3 key states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Trump won Pennsylvania by just over 44,000 votes, Michigan by fewer than 11,000 votes, and Wisconsin by fewer than 23,000 votes. Trump's combined margin of victory in those 3 states was approximately 0.5%. And why does it matter that a man who lost the popular vote and only won the Electoral College thanks to winning 3 crucial states by a combined margin of 0.5% insists that he was elected in a landslide? Because Trump and his party justify their policies by appealing to that non-existent popular mandate. They govern as though they represent the American people, or at least a majority of the American people. And they don't. When Trump speaks to supporters at the campaign rallies he's never stopped having, even though the election was almost 2 years ago and he's not up for re-election until over 2 years from now, he likes to characterize his campaign as a movement the likes of which has never been seen before. That is also not true. We have seen this kind of thing before, and that is why we can't afford to just shrug off Trump's lies about his popularity. If you're as big a fan of Some More News as I am, and you should be, it's terrific, you know that Cody Johnston has spent the last few episodes explaining what fascism is and why Trump is a fascist. One of the many disturbing characteristics which what we might label Trumpism has in common with other fascist movements that have risen to power is what Umberto Eco termed selective populism. Selective populism is when the fascist movement, and particularly its leader, claims to be acting on behalf of the people. But fascists don't appeal to the will of the majority of the people, but rather to what Eco calls a theatrical fiction of the people. In his 1995 essay, Fascism, Eco writes, "There is in our future a TV or internet populism in which the emotional response of a selected group of citizens can be presented and accepted as the voice of the people." In other words, the voice of the people equals the voice of the people who support the fascists. None of the major European fascist regimes of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s rose to power by winning majorities in free elections. Francoist Spain emerged from the end of the Spanish Civil War. Portugal's Estado Novo was the result of a military coup. In Germany, the Nazi Party did win a plurality of seats in the national parliament, the Reichstag, in the elections of 1932, but never held anything close to a majority. In Italy, where fascism originated, Mussolini's fascist party won 37 seats in the 1921 election, controlling about 7% of the national parliament. Mussolini's party joined a far-right coalition, the National Blocs, that controlled a total of 19%. The following year, tens of thousands of fascists marched on Rome, and the King of Italy, Victor Emmanuel III, appointed Mussolini prime minister. The king hoped to avoid a civil war. Instead, he cleared a path for 20 years of totalitarian dictatorship under Mussolini and the fascists. Despite claiming to act in the best interests of the people and to speak with the voice of the people, fascists don't actually rise to power on the basis of genuinely widespread popular support. But once they are in power, they use their imaginary popular mandate to justify their actions and to delegitimize institutions that threaten them. Trump has already begun to do this. His denial of any collusion between his presidential campaign and agents of the Russian government has expanded to condemnation of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into the matter and of the FBI and the Justice Department in general. Trump has repeatedly referenced his own popularity and the supposed unpopularity of the Mueller investigation, declaring the investigation bad for the country and hinting that he is considering firing Mueller. He's also used his alleged popularity and the enthusiasm of his supporters to justify his repeated attacks on the news media, decreeing stories that show him in a bad light to be fake news, and recently declaring in a speech to the veterans of foreign wars, quote, "What you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening." And he's attacked his political opponents, not merely by insulting them or lying about their views, but by drawing stark us versus them distinctions. They support street gangs and open borders. We support law and order. We, meaning Trump supporters, meaning real Americans. The will of the people.
Let's call ourselves from now on the Super League. We're the Super League.
Trump has sought to discredit institutions like the news media, which are vitally important to a healthy, functioning democracy. He has also personally attacked judges whose rulings have displeased him and threatened to end the careers of elected officials who have spoken out against him or failed to fall in line with his policies. He has not yet sought to undermine the legitimacy of Congress itself, but is such a thing really that far-fetched? When a vote doesn't yield the result Trump wants, his go-to response is to declare that it was rigged. When forced to address the fact that he lost the popular vote in 2016, he casually declares that widespread voter fraud took place, despite having absolutely no evidence for such a claim. Polls that suggest he is actually wildly unpopular are declared fake, while polls that show relatively high approval ratings are the honest ones. Does anyone believe that if Congress ever votes to impeach this man, Trump will not immediately take to Twitter to assert his fictional popular mandate and declare that Congress no longer represents the will of the people? Maxine Waters, one of Trump's most outspoken critics in Congress, whom Trump insults and attacks on a regular basis, has already had to cancel public events due to receiving death threats. What do you think would happen if Trump made a target of Congress itself? Look, I know not everyone is comfortable calling Trump a fascist, so you know what? Call him whatever you want. The label is incidental. The fact remains Trump and the collection of far-right, racist, xenophobic, nationalist ideologies he represents have a lot of things in common with authoritarian regimes of the past, including the Italian fascists and the Nazis. Both of those regimes were able to take control of their country's governments, dismantle democratic institutions, and impose dictatorships with less popular support and significantly less support in their national legislatures than Trump has right now. When Trump lies about how popular he is, when he lies about winning the election in a landslide, when he lies about having a popular mandate to govern as he sees fit, he is not just engaging in self-serving puffery. He's attempting to establish a justification for everything he says and does, and to delegitimize people and institutions that oppose, contradict, or threaten him by claiming baselessly to be the instrument of the people. Nothing is so dangerous to a democracy as a leader who defines his supporters and only his supporters as the people, and himself as the lone, legitimate interpreter of their will. This video is being published on August 1st. As of this date, there are slightly more than 3 months to go until Election Day. If you are an American and you are able to vote, go to your polling place on November 6th and vote to send people to the United States Congress who will remove this man from office. Or don't. And hope that whatever happens next is not as destructive and horrifying as it very well might be. Because if it is, it will be, at least in part, your fault. Maybe you could live with that. Maybe I could live with that too, but I wouldn't want to if I could possibly help it, which I can. And so can you.